Hey everyone, I'm Clive.
Louis here.
This is Akos.
Today, we're going to talk about how we've gotten here and the story so far. You shared at the beginning, Akos, that nobody's looking at your BIM execution plan. Is that right?
Well, that was the case. That used to be the case before actually Planoly, yes.
Oh, there we go. So we're solving the challenge there. And Louis, you talked about the fact that you create a scope and nobody would understand it. Is that right?
Well, that was the case. Yeah, difficult spreadsheets, hard to read, but now using Plannerly, that has been resolved.
Everything's perfect now. And I found when we were creating all of these requirements, it was so difficult to manage the delivery process and make sure that people were giving you what you'd asked for. It was also difficult because we were trying to understand standards, and little Jimmy here was talking about some standard. Maybe we should have corrected this, but now I hear that Jimmy's a bit of an expert in ISO 19650. He uses Excel from time to time, for sure. It's the best tool ever, but he has a lot more structured process for his information management. We don't feel like this anymore. The challenges are all behind us, hopefully, because we said, what if? So what if we could create from our templates almost instantaneously with a single click, whether it's an EIR or a BEP, so whether it's requirements documentation or an assessment or delivery. And what if we could fill this in a smart way? And what if we could have a way of, in pieces, sharing the content, having assignment of accountability and having all of that managed in one place? And we said, what if we had a structured set of requirements that were following a standard, so we could tie this into the Building Smart Data Dictionary, so we're all talking the same language? And what if, instead of having all these different spreadsheets and trying to connect them all together, what if we could have it all in the same place with the deliverables and saying these documents are required by this team? And that was the master information delivery planning, along with all of these responsibility matrices down to the details, the information required, even the rules and the verification of what's going to happen. Here we could say, well, I need a specific field, and that could be anything. And it's not just information and documentation. It could be, in this example, is this parametric or a cost or some piece of that information? And then we saw, what if all of those tasks were actually represented with timeline, and we understood what the dependencies were, who was doing it, what the handoff was, and we could really understand the flow of activities, and that would make our lives easier in the delivery process, and it would be all automated. And then we saw, well, what if we could use AI to enhance this? And we saw how we could create images from that and create descriptions from that, create checklists that were automatically our conditions of satisfaction. And what if all of this was tracked and controlled and could be structured in a way that could be exported? So in this example, we were creating an information delivery specification of a structured set of requirements that could be machine read in addition to humans reading them. And then what if all of this connected workflow could automate the checking process as well? So when we've defined these requirements, people who are submitting their models or drawings, documentation, anything that comes into the system could be automatically checked, and you could validate whether they're actually meeting the requirements. And what if all of the files that we gathered through this whole process, whether they were created in the tool or whether they were imported or whether they were connected and basically synchronized from another CDE, what if all of those came together into a clever data environment? And what if they were all automatically numbered, automatically filed away, automatically permissioned, and also had all of the security and had the e-signature, smart contracts all in that same place? So we looked at all of these different pieces of the puzzle, and we realized it's the same that we're doing today, but it's better. It's more structured. Wouldn't that be a great world? What do you think, Louis?
That would be awesome. And it is our current world. We're trusted by thousands of teams already using it, going through the workflow, and we're continuing to work with them and improve the app and fill in those gaps that we might be missing. That's exactly how we've gotten to this point so far.
Yep. Keep the comments coming, good, bad, indifferent. We love hearing what you have to say, because as Louis said, that's how we improve. That's how the app gets better for everyone around the world. We've talked about this at a really detailed level throughout the 6 weeks. We started, first of all, talking about the planning and defining requirements, setting up the tendering process, setting up the bid management process, going out and getting not just a contract in a PDF form that nobody really reads, but actually a collaborative approach to contracting, and then defining work packages that could be split up so you could have a really powerful, all-encompassing database that's then cut into the right pieces, how we can basically get an e-signature on that, but then how we can track it digitally, how we can connect into CDEs, how we can manage the delivery of anything from a model to a document to a certificate, anything through that workflow. We automated the Kobe export. We automated the lessons learned and the routing of that information and knowledge so that you could gather that into your next project. So today we are going to focus on the full workflow, and we're going to have the graduation and prizes, and we're going to do a full demo. So let's get right into the demo side of things. It's a bit scary. Are you scared? Let's see whether we can run through and rapidly do this. Let's see. So one of the biggest things is managing all of your templates and your workflows, who has access to them, and control not just your project, but also information management at a corporate lessons learned and continually evolving level. So what we had was this concept of a template and how you could manage the permissions and have administrators working on these templates. And if I go into our template, you can see the teams that are involved. You can see the standards that we're following potentially. We can start to define what the document types are that we want to manage. We can then start to make changes to these, create fields and placeholders for what we call smart fields and define them in a way that can then be structured and used later. Make some of those persistent so that they populate automatically in a project, or we can make them filled in the project. All of this content is easily reusable in each of your projects. But we also looked at how we could create content using AI and a whole bunch of other things as well. In the scoping templates, we saw how we could have everything from our project setup tasks, appointing information managers or setting up a common data environment and understanding what the tasks were, assigning these tasks to really see what the steps were to get projects started well. And then we looked at the model responsibility matrix and the different tasks inside of each of these, and being able to even go down to saying, I want to link out to certain documents, or I want to have requirements for certain documents. So for example, in the master information delivery plan, we start to say, I need to see certain document requirements. And for my 3D model, I need a delivery of this in a certain format, and being able to, if you want it in multiple formats, I would add another placeholder in here for, I would like an IFC file as well. And understand it's not just about models, but it's about drawing packages and data sheets and a whole bunch of other things. So we're creating these as templates, and then we're going through the verification process. We're setting up file management and so on. And the point of this is that then when you've got this template, I can just start creating my new project in another workspace. And that's what we're going to do today. So we're going to start from scratch. I'm going to simply name this project week 6. And so you can see there's nothing up my sleeves, and we're starting from scratch.
The super cool thing about the template, it's the same as a project. So your template space and your template project is the same as the project. You invite your team members to that project that you trust to make edits, and you don't have to wait 6 months until you have your template review meeting to make any updates. Then you end up starting new projects in between. So the great thing about this is that your templates are live. So it's always the most current and best version that you can have. So when it's time to create a new project like Clive just did, we know that we can trust that template, and we don't have to go look for the latest version somewhere.
Yep. And if a Word document that I had before, I could just import it, just drag and drop it, import it, and it creates me my content. And I could then start editing it and managing that workflow. If I wanted to use our templates, maybe there's things like the project information section that I would like to include in this, and I can just drag and drop parts of that and then start to manage and complete this with smart fields. Or if I wanted to create a full document, I could just hit the add button, it adds me a new document, and then we can start going through that management process.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that among many things that we see in the application, the use of templates also contributes to that huge time savings that many users are reporting to us, up to 80% of time savings when it comes to agreement creation. Coming from a generic template that your company put together and continuously developing based on the project learnings, and using the smart fields, the database placeholders, creates a project-specific documentation in pretty much no time. So that's absolutely a contribution to a huge amount of time savings.
Yeah, that is a great point. And it also saves time when you're working with other people. So I'm going to add you guys to this project. I could add you here with different permissions, but I'm going to jump back to our project dashboard and then add you into either a new team, or I could just add you as team members in here. Add Akash and Louis, and I'm going to make you guys managers. But we talked about prospective teams in the demonstrations and how you can restrict certain permissions if you want to do that. So as I add both of the team members in here, they get access, they get an email. It's project based, so they don't have to have their own license. And if you look from a role and permission perspective, each person, their role and permission that we've set here can be managed in each project. You can turn on and off a bunch of different permissions so they get access to certain things, don't get access to certain things. You can even define your own roles or import them from a previous project that you've been working on. So you can really manage the detail about how people are going about working on your project. This is the same thing for working on templates as well.
Every team works in different ways. There's a different workflow. There's a certain trust level you have with your consultants, with your own team even. And these permissions and roles are built to accommodate your workflow, whether you trust them or not, or what you want to get out of your consultants or internal team members. It can really be adjusted to fit your workflow.
Yep. And inside of each project, you can also show or hide certain modules if you wanted to. Describe the way that you are creating or not creating certain coding, for example. I'm going to choose not to join the codes together, which dictionaries that you want to use. So I'm going to use Uniclass. I'm going to use IFC. All of this is your ability to set and define however you are wanting to manage and create your content on your project. I'm going to put a code in here so we can see how that is used in File Manager as well. And maybe just to sort of like look at File Manager to start with, when we create a new project, there are obviously no files in here. This is the nothing up my sleeves. But maybe, Louis, can you add a model or two so that we can start that processing in the background?
Yep, already on it.
Okay, cool. So we've looked at building a team to start working on these documents. And the way that we start working collaboratively when people actually have accountability is I can now, with these team members, start assigning different parts of the document to each team member. Akash is responsible for certain things here. Louis is responsible for completing certain things there. Maybe I need more than one person's input for one part of it so that we've got each of the team members working here. They would get emailed to know that they had responsibility for this. And then they can start, so I can see Akash is in this section. He's working in here, filling some things in. And then as we go through this process, what's great about it is that it's not one blob like a Word document would be or a PDF. It's actually these reusable, smaller sections of information. And we can share permission, change the access to each of these. And we know what's shared for people to look at, what's published and authorized for use, and what's being worked on. And maybe there's a comment or two. So we can see, if I click on the comment bubble, I can see here, Akash would love to fill this out, but I think you know the details. Okay, so it's my responsibility. Okay, and we can mark these off. I can have reactions, say, okay, and we can start clearing and resolving these. If I do know these details, maybe I know the project start date. If I complete the project start date in this section, it actually completes in every section, not just in this document, but also across all documents. So you have that control over these fields that makes it a lot easier to go through that process. So I'm going to now say, okay, I've resolved this. It becomes a resolved item. I'm going to now share this, or maybe I'm going to publish this. And as I go through this process, all of that activity, everything that I'm doing for this section is all recorded. So we have a thread of all of the changes, all of the information changes, actually all of the edits as well. So let me just make some edits in something like this. So if I make some updates to this, everything is automatically saved, everything is automatically versioned, and I don't have to even think about that history, that change management history is all happening automatically. And we talked about AI and the use of AI there. Well, what happens if I wanted to use AI to fix this? I could just simply highlight it, ask for it to be corrected, and instead of going through the spell check and grammar and everything else, the hope is that it's going to fix this automatically, even retaining our hyperlinks. So it's not just a blob of text, it's actually really structured code. And then we can see how it's updating these and what it's actually changing. So some of these updates are what I would say they're intelligent updates. So it's not just trying to fix spelling, but it's also grammar and punctuation, a whole bunch of other things as well.
There's so many features getting thrown in here, but it's worth noting that the statuses and all the features are built for this industry. So the approval workflow, for instance, the viewers on a project cannot actually access what's in progress, right? So that's giving your team that privacy of, hey, I could share these sections with these team members because those pieces are ready, but I'm not yet ready to show what's in progress. So they're not just status colored items to kind of keep track. They are actual usable features that can help you remove that bottleneck from having to wait for an entire document and then sending that to Akash and then getting his feedback. I can get his feedback on this shared content right now, and he can come in and provide that feedback right away. So time efficiency comes from that. And all of that activities and comments are on one place instead of scattered emails. Right, Akash?
Exactly. That's what I wanted to add. So if we step one step back, why are we having these beautiful features? Is what we are doing is moving from the traditional word processing exercise and copy and paste from another project to create an execution plan. Then having a long execution plan, the longer it is, we think the better it is, and trying to send it over emails and hoping that someone will read it on the other end and gives us feedback. So we are changing that into this database driven approach when we are inviting all the collaborators into the same environment, breaking it down into smaller pieces and only assigning those pieces to responsible parties. Again, as I mentioned a couple of minutes earlier, this all contributes to a huge time savings, which I think is just one thing, saving all that time. But what is even more important is that we, in the end, will have a true agreement. Everyone really understands before even signing the document, before even issuing an execution plan, what the goals are and how we are going to achieve that goal together.
Yep. And when we're together, I just mentioned there that permissions we talked about on document sections, but also on documents entirely. Say, for example, I don't want anybody on other teams to have access to this. I can control that from a management perspective. Or if I only want one team or a few teams that are bidding on it, then I can really control that from a permissions perspective. So really flexible to control who has access to what. You don't have to keep them in separate documents uploaded in someplace. You can actually keep everything from your meeting minutes and your memos to your contract documents and your requirements, everything in the same place.
So one thing that you mentioned is the history of the document creation. But the other thing that is really beautiful is the overview of what has happened to the entire project. So when you enter the project, it's not just about seeing how it progresses, but you will be notified actually even outside of the project with email notifications. But when you log in, you will immediately see all the changes and all the comments and everything, all the happenings on the projects are going to be tied into this one channel.
Yep, exactly. And so I can go through this and see what the changes are, click through. It's sorted for project feed, so everything or the things that are important to me, I can go through and review and make sure that I'm kept up to date with everything that's happening. The docs is all about more structured information management than Word documents and trying to manage the workflow to get an approval. But in projects, we have a lot more structure than we need. And that's where in the project requirements, jumping to the scope, we're able to define the tasks so that we can get agreement on what the task needs to be all the way through to the delivery and the verification that it's done. We have a huge library of activities that you can use to set up your projects, and you could simply just drag and drop them into your project. But we also allow you to use any project that you've done before. These are available to you to get started. But today, let's just start from scratch and see if we can create something quickly to show you an example, and then we'll bring in something from one of our templates in the same way. You can start with an import from a CSV file as well. So you can load that if you've got data already. You can import an IDS file as well, an information delivery specification. If you've got structured data, it will bring in everything with all of your requirements and information. But if we were to just get started from scratch, and I'm going to click to add a row, and then let's define, I like pumps. It shows a great example. And automatic condensate pumps. And by choosing this from our library, I can also see that we've brought in the classification code as well. And we can start to follow the same standards based on, in this example, Building Smart connection to the Building Smart data dictionary for unit class. And this is now going to be named exactly correctly, coded correctly, and linked directly to the the Building Smart Data Dictionary so you can see what it's actually meaning. And if there's anything related to this pump specifically, it's then stored inside of the Building Smart Data Dictionary. As we define one of these requirements, let's say that I define it for milestone 1. It's the only milestone we have. And by clicking inside of this cell, I can open up all of the requirements. And I don't know what an automatic condensate pump looks like. So I'm going to use AI to generate me an image so that I can better understand it. I'm also going to use AI to give me, and you should obviously use AI with caution, but the beauty of the workflow that is set up here, the AI already understands everything about the project. It understands the type of project, where it's located, the task, the coding system. So for example, a checklist of conditions of satisfaction, but I wouldn't really know where to start. What would I need to check? Well, these are maybe some of the things that I would like to check, coordinate with team members, review compliance with project standard, etc. What is the geometry that's required for this? Is it that I need generic representation or detail representation or fabrication level representation? How coordinated? What reliability do I need? If it's for a handover, maybe I need an as-built representation, and I can choose how accurate I would like that to be, what tolerances, whether it's measured or represented accuracy. And as I'm defining this, let me update the description so that it bases it now on that new information. So it's really going to be fabrication level geometry requirements adhered to as-built, and it's really defining it in a structured way. And some of these parts of the workflow are following what we have explained in the workflow before as level of information need. And if you want to really define even more fields, then you can add them, and you could add basically any type of field to this, whether it's just a text field or a Boolean or a date or a pick list or URL or documents, and really customize exactly how you want to create this.
Yeah, these field options really allow, as you mentioned, to follow the level of information needs, which is ISO 7817, if we want to put a tag on that as well. So you can create all the fields that ISO describes, or even more, whatever is needed for your project. And the other thing that I wanted to highlight is that not only creating all these requirements and data in the task cards, but everything, as you see, and Louis just added a note saying cool pump, everything is again going to be recorded. So by the time you get to a contract or execution or virtual execution and things like that, you will have all the decisions made throughout the entire journey. So you really have the golden thread of decision making that can be recorded for the entire project.
Yep. It was so cool. I just assigned it to you, Louis. So now you have full responsibility of this cool bump.
Not that cool anymore.
We're defining all of the requirements here. We've got a name, a code, a link directly to an image that represents what the geometry is that we're looking for, description, definition of what that is, checklist, the documents that might be required, who it's assigned to, what milestone, what dates, etc. The full activity of what's happened to create this set of requirements. And even on the information requirements, this is the level that we will get to, is now we need to start defining on this object for this delivery, what is it that we need to know? And if it's structured data, maybe this pump, we need to know something about the warranty. And if I don't have already in my project library, but I can look at the connected libraries, and I want to know about, has it got an extended warranty? And now I have asked for this information, or I'm placing this requirement on this task, on this object, and there will be an automated way for us to check whether that is actually fulfilled or not. So we've talked about how we would create some of this. We've started to show things like what the documents are that are required, what the information requirements are, and a whole bunch of other things that we could put in here. So we could put checklists in here and show this, and we can then go through this process, check them off, add new ones, etc. Attach a file in here, so upload it to this specific object as we go through these workflows. But if we've done this before, let me just turn off a couple of those. So now we've got, information requirements and the documents required. If I've done this before, I can bring that in from another project. We've already got a template for this. So I go to my template and see everything that we've set up before. In my example, I'm just going to, let's remove that milestone because we've got some nicely structured milestones in our project. Actually, I'll leave that one in there, but now just to know I've removed that requirement.
It's worth showing the flexibility of this import too. You can set up these folders, like in this case, a model responsibility matrix, an MIDP. You can drag and drop each folder. If it depends on every project is different, right? So I can drag and drop the model responsibility or just the architectural scope. But in the import settings, you can also choose what milestones you want to bring in from that template. So you can have your template project be the master of all your scope for all of this content, and you have that flexibility to bring in what is actually needed.
So let's say that we need 3D coordination and asset information model as deliverables, that they become columns. You can define these and group these and a whole bunch of things that we showed you in webinar 3, I think it was, week 3. And you can be selective about what you bring in. Let's bring in the architectural scope for the model responsibility matrix. And let's just bring in the master information delivery plan and some management tasks as well, just so that we've got some detail in here. I can start dragging and dropping this around. So, that's the architectural scope. Let's bring in the mechanical scope as well. So now we've got folders for all of these. I'm going to turn off the classification codes to make it look simple. And then I'm going to drag this guy up here. I'm going to create a new folder and call this responsibility matrix or design responsibility matrix. And then I'm going to, inside of here, I'm going to drag these in, indent these inside of this folder. And I'm also going to drag this one and put it inside of the mechanical folder. There we go. So now we've got a design responsibility matrix, master information delivery plan, and some management tasks that might be associated with maybe closeout tasks, things that we need to do and remind ourselves and make sure that we're completing all of the steps. Okay, that becomes a lot. So when we're defining requirements for multiple teams, you start to see, obviously, multiple milestones, multiple teams that could be involved. So the orange here represents the architect, the blue represents the contractor. So it could be that early on, different teams are responsible for different elements, delivery in the models, and that handover is occurring between different stages. Being able to show that handover is really important, but you want to be able to filter down in this same way that we've defined information requirements for the supply and return air ducts. And we need to know specifically a system category that is one of these comma separated values. So we've gone from defining one row with one requirement to we brought in some things that we've done on previous projects, and it's automatically now populating this with the requirements. Let's just say that we need more of these as information requirements on this task at this stage. And the thing that I wanted to share with you is that it brought in not just the tasks, the assignments, it's actually created us the teams in our project as well automatically. So now we can invite those specific team members to each of these teams, and we can create new teams in here, and we can start collaborating to get to an agreement. And the agreement stage in the scoping is pretty cool because now we can assign those pieces to specific team members, and we can assign, let's say that Louis is responsible for some of the delivery. What model did you drop in, Louis?
The architectural model.
Okay, so let's say that you're responsible for the asset information model. Let's filter this down and say, just for that milestone, asset information model, and your team's work. Actually, I think you're going to have some of the contractors' work as well, because that's where it is. And then let's just say that it's not all folders, but it's just the design responsibility matrix that we're looking at. Yeah, so this is going to be our set of requirements that we're going to then check to see whether Louis has completed these or not. And in order to be able to do this, I'm going to create a work package. So based on this filter, I can simply create a work package, name it as let's say this is the ARC asset information model. And yeah, I'm just simply going to say save to this. And now it becomes a work package. So I can go from all scope to the asset information model work package very quickly, very easily, very simply. And I'm going to assign this model as being the model that I'm checking against this work package.
Yeah, at this point, Clive just filtered all of the content directly and made it so much easier for me to look at this and find my scope of work. Typically, Excel spreadsheets, they're great for their uses. You can fill it in, but it can get complex when you start to add more detail. So for every piece of information, as far as just who is responsible for content, we need new rows or new cells, or we have to start making up abbreviations to just cram all this content. Here, it's built for this environment, this workflow, for Clive to come in, provide me the exact scope of work that I'll be looking at. And I'm going to do this for Clive, but he can start to propose some of this scope. And then I can then jump in here and approve it and status it differently, comment on each one of these. And so that this environment is just much more transparent and no miss scope can really come out of this. That workflow is just really, really efficient.
Yep, absolutely. So Lou is just sort of choosing them here, but you would obviously go through a conversation and make sure that you're agreeing on this, and it would be multi-party. I'm just going to mark them all as approved. And I could even, for this filter, I could say I only want to see approved content inside of this filter. And I'm going to copy this link and I'm going to send it to him and say, go to this and start either agreeing, disagreeing, commenting, going through a collaborative agreement process. And if I set it up so that he could only see the things that were assigned to him, and that he could only edit or change things or comment on the things that were assigned to him, it would mean that he doesn't even know that he's working in a project that has got everyone else's information in here as well. He would just go to the all scope and it would only show him the things that are assigned to him. It's magic. It's exactly how we work. It streamlines this whole process. It makes it really dedicated. It feel like that it's just an application for him, the documents that he can see, the scope that's assigned to him, but whereas you're working with everything.
Yeah, we've seen a couple of different features for, again, speeding up and making this responsibility matrix creation more collaborative and effective. Thomas mentioned in the chat, don't forget to explain the delete mode as well. So you showed the quick assign mode. There are some goodies there, and some of our expert users know about that. So how to get rid of some of these.
I love it. We also, so we've defined a scope for Louis that he's submitted a model for, and we've linked it up now so that this work package is linked to this specific model, and he stored it on Autodesk Construction Cloud. So what Louis done already is he's connected a model from ACC that he's working on, and every time there's a new version, it will automatically connect in here and check it against his work package. And the beauty of this so far is that we've agreed on what has to happen and who has to do it, but we haven't said when it has to occur. So there's a second mode inside of here. We're in the grid view at the moment, but if I switch, we will see a grid turn into a set of timeline tasks. We're basically showing the same set of tasks, interior walls, partitions, interior doors, etc., but now they are bars on a Gantt chart, and I can move them around and say, no, this one's going to happen here, and this is going to be the predecessor. And as we start to define this, you see the bars move around. So I'm going to say this one here. Let me zoom out so I can see more of this, and then start putting dependencies in. And as we're doing this, and I can see, yeah, Louis was added to this guy here. Oh, actually, there's going to be a lag on this. So there's going to be a one day lag on this link from this task to this task. This task actually must start on this specific date. So I can force a constraint, start no earlier than this specific date. Whole bunch of these really sophisticated scheduling, timeline, application management, and everything is being updated. So, and if we wanted to see this in a compact view so that it was very familiar to us as a standard Gantt chart or timeline, we can see that. So this workflow means that we don't just have the tasks, we have all of the requirements, the assignment, the accountability, the history, what's going to happen, when it's going to happen, this ability to be able to see it in a very streamlined and compact way. We have the ability to see just this specific work package. And we also have the ability, if we have permission, to see the whole of the project overall. We can start to work on all of it, some of it in the same view.
So we are now, before doing any kind of deliverable creation, actually, before doing any kind of modeling, this is the agreement creation phase. And this is maybe when we would combine our structured document and our responsibility matrix, task and master information delivery plan into a contract, a beautiful human readable contract. You can get signatures on it as well. But what I really like about it is that you can also get the machine readable version of it. So you see IDS and Excel exports options. So yeah, this is the human readable version of your agreement. And if you need a machine readable for downstream use in third-party applications as well, you can very easily create that with a click of a button.
Very cool. So let's do that very quickly then. As you mentioned, we're combining all of the documents and all of the scoping into a single document, all formatted, cut and sliced based on maybe a work package automatically. So if I click this one, it will allow us to say, what do I want in this document? Let's say to show us overall a document index. This document index has got nothing in because we've got no documents. But if I add the EIR, you can see now we've got document index that shows the EIR. It links directly to it. Everything in that EIR is automatically linked and put into a nicely formatted document with a standard table of contents, so I don't even have to think about that? What if I wanted to include a page with the teams on, and now I've got a Teams directory that actually has all of our contact details, and really easily, quickly, it's got our images in here as well, so we don't have to even think about that. Maybe we only want to filter it for a certain set of teams, so maybe it's only our team that we want to show in here, and now this is filtered out, so we don't even have to think about that and do that. We would like to include a grid of the scope, so we include this scoping grid, and that shows us a nice grid of all these requirements. I want to include a timeline as well next to this. And now we've got the timeline of tasks that we've included. I want a details print of everything that's included. So now we've got details about every single one of these. And now I want to filter this for a specific work package, or even a really detailed filter that just says, I want certain teams, tasks, and certain statuses and certain milestones. And then we'll get onto, but I also want to have a report connected to this to show me progress. So all of these different parts of the puzzle I can quickly do, and then I could name it, I can add a description, I could even ask for people's signatures at the same time, but I'm going to show you how we'll just create this. We create, it becomes an untitled report, but we'll clear that up in our automatic naming convention very soon. And you can see that this goes along with all of the other placeholder documents that have been created as we dragged it in from our templates before. Let me open this just to show you what it's created. It's created a document and it's all hyperlinked nicely. We can go through this and scroll through and see it all and be happy that we've got a great document that's formatted nicely. It could even have a cover page and headers and footers that are defined for our standards. Whole bunch of this. Let's see some of the detail. It's all linked together. It's all hyperlinked to connect inside of here as well. Let's look at something like this where we have a requirement in the grid. I can see this is approved. There's a link directly to what I need to create. And you can see Louis is assigned to these interior walls. He has to add these properties. We know the dates at which he's going to be doing this. Whole bunch more. We can also get approvals on this. So I'm going to add the requirement for these guys to sign this document. And I can do that simply by clicking like that. It does everything for me. I don't have to download it, upload it somewhere else. They get an email. They can review. They can sign it. I'm going to go in. I'm going to sign it. I can either use my name written. I'm looking forward to what Akosh's signature looks like. I don't know where, Akosh is replying to some of those other things, maybe not signing it. Louis signed it. Great. Let me open up the document. There's a full history of it, all of the details. So it's more secure than an e-signature where you are sending an email and anybody can click that link. You actually have to be logged in to have access and to be able to review and sign it. When we've got a contract and it's signed, then we would want to track and control per work package. If we've selected this work package in the scope, what's beautiful about this, I moved to the verify module and it will automatically filter for the same set of scope. And I can see that these are the tasks that are filtered. We can go about using different ways of grouping this to say, I want to assign these tasks maybe to certain team members by just using the Kanban board to assign them to specific team members. Actually, man, I'm just doing too much assignment to myself. I should not do that. And when we are, I want to click this button so much. So to reverse engineer your tasks, if you've got a perfect model, you could create everything from that model. So there's a magic button to backtrack into all of the requirements automatically. Anyway, I want to check to see whether these tasks have really been delivered. And so I'm going to filter just for the tasks that are completed. And I'm going to go back to just my status. So guys, Louis, you said that the model was done. Yeah. Can you tell me which tasks you finished? So he said that he's done the interior doors. Okay, great. So I'm going to bring up the model, and this model is coming from ACC. We saw we can do a whole bunch of things. We can fly through it, cut cross sections through it, measure it, do a whole bunch of things like that. But what we're interested in is whether this model meets the requirements. And for interior doors, we were asking for certain information requirements, and the interior walls, we were asking for certain information requirements. I could do that by selecting something and assigning it, or I could use a rule-based assignment and say, for the interior walls, go and find a certain property like the type name, and is it called interior walls? Interior walls. Go and find anything with this value and basically assess whether these things meet it. It's found 81 of them, and Louis not done a very good job. So pretty much instantaneously, I can find out what's missing and what's actually included. I can see that none of the walls have this acoustic rating. So I'm going to do Louis a quick, well, just for the demonstration purposes, I'm going to remove one of these. It's going to reevaluate this. And now clicking on it, I can see, okay, most of them have what we've asked for, but there are 4 of them here that have not. Quickly, Louis can see whether that's correct or not instantaneously and go through the review process. And rather than me create an issue report, he can actually go through the fixes on his own.
This whole environment here, because it's integrated with the scope, it's integrated with the tasks. I don't have to go and figure that out in that spreadsheet. I can see that right away. It's all filtered down just for me. And I can also use this with my team, and I can assign my modeling teams their scope of work. So if it's like having one person in charge of all the walls, another person in charge of the windows, if Clive gives me that permission, I can manage my own set of tasks. And in this example, I went ahead, uploaded a new version, and started to tie that task to the element so I could do some self QA. So next time, before I just start to throw things over the fence like we've showed in a previous webinar, I'm going to actually check these tasks against my model before I put them in that completed task. Then when Clive is ready, he can jump into all and review all the completed tasks and start to verify. The verify stat in here is actually a column that only a manager could do. So he can make me an editor, but I cannot verify a task, and only Clive would be able to do that. This workflow with all these statuses, you can build that any way you'd like. If you want a fixes column, if you want an almost done column, whatever that is for your workflow, you can set that up and go through it. But this collaborative environment can promote a self QA workflow as well. So that actually can help you save a lot of time and only check what is necessary and not just a list of items to figure that out.
Very cool. Okay. As we've been going through this workflow, we've been collecting a whole bunch of files. So they could be model files, they could be these reports that we've created, they could be certificates. So this was actually, a requirement that we've defined for a pump certificate. These are PDF plans or architecture files, Revit files, IFC files, Excel files, PDFs. And as we're collecting them, we want to be able to sort them. We want to be able to name them automatically. We want to be able to manage these workflows. So we have some really cool ways of automatically naming these files. Actually, this is going to not look as good as other previous demos because it hasn't been, I'm not following any standard. I'm just going to go with project ID and then the version number and then unique number, let's say. So now I'm automatically defining these names of the files, and I'm going to automatically filter them into certain places. So let's say I only want to have the approved documents, and I want to create a filter for approved documents, approved contracts, for example. And now, anytime I upload a document and it gets approved as a contract, it will get filtered into this folder. So not worrying about whether something is, let me see whether I can drag and drop some files in here quickly. Almost, if I go in here, yeah, there we go. So now it's looking for some of these things. It's going to automatically upload these, put them in the right place, version them, connect them to the right documents if they are, and automate that workflow. So if you're really looking for how to automate this workflow and see how this workflow is really connected into the requirements and tracking automatically what you're uploading, and anything else I need to cover?
Reports. So actually, I just created an architectural task report that is tied to the models.
Oh, nice. Yeah, there we go.
So that is.
So now we've got the numbers in here and progress and pie charts and everything that shows how we are performing over time. Okay, that was pretty full on, a lot to cover. So we're trying to recap all of these different parts of the workflow. There is a lot. A lot of teams are just focusing on one piece, whether it's just creating a more structured documentation workflow with standards and templates, or whether it's detailed model requirements or automatically checking those models, or whether it's storing, collating all of the deliverables. They might be individual use cases that you want to focus on. So what now? Well, create your free account if you don't already have it. There's also a promo code, webinar 10, that will get you 10% discount on any plan. We have free training, everything from the basics of BIM management through advanced workflows, expert level ISO 19650 for yourself, for your company, understanding the gaps, and then getting a business case so that you can really go through a good change management process. All of that is free of charge on that website, plannerly.com/training. Connect with us, scan those QR codes to follow what we're doing individually, but also join this LinkedIn group so that you can see all of the updates and everything that goes on in the community. It's been a blast.
Yeah, it's like a sad day when you're leaving your friends after camp, right? Thanks for joining us. Thank you so much for the comments and the feedback. And do not stop the feedback. We love it. And that's going to help us continue improving the app for you guys. So thank you. Thank you.
Yep. Thanks, everyone. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
See you.
We'll see you on the next one.
See you.